Hello and good morning. We're going to give it just a minute here for our attendees to log in. We'll get started here in just 1 minute. Okay, good morning and welcome. My name is Lance Beck. I am the President and CEO for the Greater Spokane Valley Chamber of Commerce. It is my pleasure to welcome you here this morning to our Manufacturing Matters webinar. This annual event is designed to draw attention to our greater goods priority here at the Valley Chamber. We strive to promote this Greater Spokane Valley as a leader in high-tech manufacturing. This initiative supports the expansion of our manufacturing sector through the advocacy and the development of key collaborations leading to a sustainable economic future. We'll be kicking off 2022 with an update to the initiatives driving this priority into the coming years. We look forward to giving you more information as we enter the new year. We are excited to have you joining us for the call today, and as we get started, I want to start by acknowledging our chamber partners. Our investor partner is Modern Electric Water Company. Our visionary partners, Alliant Employee Benefits, BII, BNSF Railways, Multicare Valley Hospital, Providence Healthcare, Spokane International Airport, Walmart, and WM. Additionally, thank you to our corporate level partners shown here, and our community partners, the City of Liberty Lake and the City of Spokane Valley. It is also an honor and privilege to welcome any of the Valley Chamber members joining us today. We are honored to have your business and yourselves supporting our work and engaging with the community through membership with the Valley Chamber. At this time, I would like to acknowledge our sponsors for today's program. Today's greater good sponsor is Impact Washington. With us today is Nick Wilkes, Account Executive for Eastern Washington. Nick, will you go ahead and unmute?
Yeah, I think I'm unmuted and you can see my video okay?
We can.
Great. Thanks for having us, Lance. Just a quick introduction to who Impact Washington is and how we help small manufacturers throughout the state of Washington. So we are the state's affiliate of the NIST MEP program. That's a 30-year program. It's been through the Department of Commerce. MEP is Manufacturing Extension Partnership. So our entire mission is to support and increase the competitiveness of small and medium-sized manufacturers. I'm new to the team here, but not new to helping small and medium-sized manufacturers. I will be the resource for Eastern Washington located in Spokane. So really excited to meet you all in the future. Just a few hints on kind of how we help manufacturers is we kind of just want to become a resource hub for you. So any problem that you have, whether it be workforce development, supply chain, operational excellence, leadership, strategy setting, we're a hub and also a resource to help you implement those best practices and strategies. So I look forward to meeting you all in the future and hopefully become a valuable process and part of the community. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Nick, and welcome to the team with Impact Washington and to our community here in the Eastern region. We've certainly been blessed with great partnerships from the staff there in driving impact here on the Eastern sector, manufacturing sector. So again, welcome. Look forward to working more with you in the future here.
Absolutely, thanks.
Next, I'd like to acknowledge our underwriting sponsor for today's program, Wagstaff Incorporated. With us today is a Valley Chamber board member, Wade Larson, who's also the Director of Human Resources for Wagstaff. Wade, I'll turn it over to you.
All right, thanks. And thanks for the opportunity to sponsor today's event. As you know, Wagstaff is a strong supporter of developing the manufacturing base here in the region. We know that our health as a company depends on the combined strength of all manufacturers. So working together to grow and develop the workforce, that's paramount for both today and the future. And so we've all experienced this labor drought. I mean, that's not going to go away. It's going to be here for the next 10 to 15 years. And we recognize that our community college trades classes, they're empty. And the technical high school classes, they're running short. And we're still struggling with that notion that there's anything other than a 4-year college degree out there for our youth. So these combined efforts to increase opportunities to expose the kids to good paying jobs, that begins with our relationships with K-12, extends through our degrees and certificates with the colleges, and even expands into industry recognized certificates. So as employers, we recognize that need to be focused on competencies, what people can know, be, and do, and not so much the paper on the wall. So this has led us to partner with other manufacturers and agencies, educators alike, and we want to really expand those workplace and career launch programs. So our Summer Production and Manufacturing Academy, for example, has been really successful in providing students with those hands-on experiences, but more importantly, it's raised the awareness of what else is out there, of these additional programs and opportunities and careers. And so working with Career Connect Washington and other partners, we're looking for other opportunities to expand like the Academy into other industries and locations. So we hope to resume business after school in the spring, bring as many as 200 kids to the workplace to learn about manufacturing. Other programs to expand the work-based experiences in the high schools where they can earn college credits as they work in a manufacturing setting. College programs offered through Spokane Valley Tech. We're working, we're in talks with that, and hands-on training opportunities at the work site. Those are all in the works for us to help expand those opportunities in manufacturing. But our goal really is to make manufacturing a profession of choice, and to grow that workforce, we really need to make it successful. So I would invite all manufacturers out there, any businesses who want to get in here and participate, to reach out if they want to get on this bus and help grow tomorrow's future workforce today. So anyway, you're invited to the party, and feel free to reach out. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Wade. And I don't think Wade sleeps. Honestly, I think he's always grinding on this workforce topic. And one note he left out about the academy is they don't stop with just giving the students an idea of what it's like to work within manufacturing. They've taken a step further, partnered with businesses, local businesses, to develop scholarship funds, as well as our Spokane Valley Chamber Foundation to develop scholarship funds to provide these students that graduate the academy, for the ones that want to continue forward in their education path, some assistance to keep going down that path. So thank you again to Wade and your team. Look forward to seeing where the academy goes in the future, and the additional academies that can be stood up in the future as well. At this time, we're going to jump into our program. We'd like to point out that our Q&A function will be open for the call today. We will attempt to answer all the questions live on the call, but in the event that your question doesn't get answered live on the call, we'd go ahead and ask you to please email our team. We'll provide an email address towards the end of the program, and we'll take the time to connect you directly with the speakers today. Introducing our speakers today is our speaker sponsor, Bank of America. And with us today to provide that introduction is another Valley Chamber Board member, Ray Corwin, who's the Vice President and Senior Relationship Manager for Eastern Washington and North Idaho markets in commercial banking at Bank of America. Ray, I will turn it over to you.
Good morning, and thank you, Lance. All right, I have the pleasure, again, my name is Ray Corwin. I'm a Senior Business Banking Relationship Manager here in Eastern Washington, and I have the pleasure and opportunity this morning to introduce our two speakers. So Dr. Edmund O. Schweitzer III is recognized as a pioneer in digital protection and holds the grade of Fellow in the IEEE, a title bestowed on less than 1% of IEEE members. In 2002, he was elected as a member of the National Academy of Engineering. Dr. Schweitzer received his bachelor's and master's degrees in electrical engineering from Purdue University and his doctorate from Washington State University. He served on the electrical engineering faculties at Ohio University and Washington State University, And in 1982, he founded Schweitzer Engineering Laboratories, SEL. In 2019, Dr. Schweitzer was inducted to the National Inventors Hall of Fame for his invention of the first digital protective relay. Dr. Schweitzer is the recipient of the Regents Distinguished Alumni Award and Graduate Alumni Achievement Award from Washington State University and the Purdue University Outstanding Electrical and Computer Engineering Award. David E. Whitehead is the Chief Executive Officer at Schweitzer Engineering Laboratories. After joining SEL in 1994, Whitehead served in a variety of roles within the company, including hardware engineer, research engineer, chief engineer of the Government Services Division, vice president of research and development, and chief operating officer. A passionate driver of product and talent development at SEL, Whitehead has had a hand in the steady stream of inventions and innovations to come out of the United States-based technology company. He's been awarded with more than 60 patents around the world. Whitehead received his BSEE from Washington State University in 1989 and his MSEE from Rensselaer Polytech Institute in 1994. He's registered as a professional engineer in Washington, New York, Michigan, and North Carolina. So on behalf of Bank of America, we welcome you both, and we just thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Ray, for the kind introduction. Before we get started, we're going to present a video that describes what SEL is and what we do every day for those that were not familiar with us.
The electricity we use in our homes, schools, and hospitals can be accessed with the flick of a switch, made possible by our amazing power grid. Our electric grid is an interconnected network of transmission and distribution power lines that bring power from generating stations to the consumers. The miracle of the power system is that it delivers the exact amount of electricity to its customers at the speed of light. Sometimes adverse conditions, such as heavy winds or falling branches, can short-circuit or damage an electric power line. These short circuits, left uncorrected, can damage equipment, endanger people, or spread to wide area blackouts. This is where protective relays save the day. Relays quickly detect short circuits and trip circuit breakers to stop the flow of electricity to these power system faults. Historically, power lines were protected by sets of large electromechanical relays. Unfortunately, these relays didn't provide any information about where the short circuit occurred, so crews had to search many miles to find and fix the damage. This was a time-consuming and expensive process. Edmund O. Schweitzer III, a PhD student at the time, thought there might be a better solution. He combined what he knew about traditional power system protection and digital signal processing with what he was learning about the latest technology on the scene, microprocessors. The result was the SEL-21, the first microprocessor-based protective relay. This one device replaced a whole set of electromechanical relays that were necessary to protect a power line. Additionally, it could locate where short circuits occurred. Repair crews could now travel straight to the damaged section and restore power quickly, saving a tremendous amount of time and money. Some of the other innovations the SEL-21 offered were event reports that detailed grid conditions before, during, and after a short circuit event, communication between digital relays and control centers, and diagnostic testing built into the device to ensure it is working properly. Dr. Schweitzer's vision, embodied by the SEL-21, revolutionized the electric power industry. Now, with more and more digital relays in use around the world, power grids everywhere have become safer and more reliable.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for having us. As a reminder, if you have any questions, please send them in, and we'll try to get to them by the end of the talk today. Or if not, we'll get your email addresses and we'll get back to you with a response. It's great to be here with the Spokane Chamber Valley meeting, even though it's virtual. It really got me thinking about the chamber and what one of its purposes is to support the spirit of free enterprise. After all, free, fair, flat, and open are the most powerful economic development tools we have. And Ed, I know you've always been a big proponent of this, and this is not a D or an R topic, rather it affects all of us as business people. Could you explain some of your thoughts on the idea of fair, free, flat, and open?
You bet, David. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be with the Spokane Valley Chamber today. Last time I was with you was October 28th, 2015, following a big windstorm. The meeting was at the Red Lion Hotel, and the place was jam-packed with people dislocated from their homes for lack of electric power, denying them heat. So it was an event I'll never forget. I'm really interested in the spirit of free enterprise. I'm happy that that's the byline of the Chambers of Commerce, and so happy that that's alive and well at the Spokane Valley Chamber of Commerce. And the spirit of free enterprise really goes back to the ideas of Adam Smith. He wrote in the Wealth of Nations in 1775. It is always and must be the interest of the great body of people to buy whatever they want of those who sell it cheapest. This proposition could never have been called into question had not the sophistry of merchants and manufacturers confounded the common sense of mankind. So you start to think about it, how many times folks depart from this very, very basic situation. Milton Friedman liked to point at that, at the work of Adam Smith. And he said, if an exchange between two parties is voluntary, it will not take place unless both parties believe they will benefit from it. I'm not going to buy your used car from you unless you and I agree on a price, and you'll be happy to have the money, and I'll be happy not to be riding my bicycle. That going back to Friedman, most economic fallacies derive from the neglect of this simple insight, from the tendency to assume that there is a fixed pie, that one party can gain only at the expense of another. So this beautiful concept of the spirit of free enterprise means that we, the people, within inalienable rights granted by our Creator to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, we will find a way, and in the process, our country will prosper. And that's really the important mission of your Chamber of Commerce.
And you recently created a website. It's fairfreeflatopen.com. If folks are interested in learning more about economics and economic freedom, I think that's a great place to go get information. Could you tell us a little bit about why even start a website like that?
Oh, you know, forever, just about anything that happens, there's sort of a tipping point or a triggering event. And we were struggling with introducing a new law in Washington State to our employee owners, namely the one involving the Long-Term Care Act. And we were explaining to our employee owners that their income in Washington, earned in Washington State, would be taxed at 0.58%. And even if they lived in Idaho, for example. And we had about a dozen seminars to teach people this and explain how there was a opt-out and so forth. And I was amazed. I was very unhappy with it myself, but I was amazed how people were shocked by this thing. And it was time to start acting. And in the course of writing the governor a couple of letters and some op-ed pieces and other things, and working with the chambers, including yours, well, at some point said, okay, now we're going to do this website to get us back to the first principles that have made our country and this state great, which is economic and political freedom.
Thanks, Ed. Moving on a little bit more, the title on the screen today was Manufacturing Matters, and I think both Ed and I would agree manufacturing does really matter. It's certainly, I think, core to a strong country. If you look in the news today, you'll see a bunch of container ships stuck out in front of Long Beach or other ports around our country with real big supply chain challenges we have. Maybe you can help us. How does SEL secure our supply chain, and what is your supply chain philosophy so that we don't end up in a kind of a mess we are, not only in the US, but it seems globally too?
It is a global mess. And the global economy is so dependent on logistics today that, and that's been exposed by the shipping problems that we see. It's just incredible pictures. If you fly over that area and look down at I think there's roughly 80 ships, I think is what it was last week, the latest number, just in the Long Beach, LA area. And of course, up and down the East Coast, there's similar problems. And it's because we have been expecting to be able to buy or make anything from anywhere in the world. And all that works pretty good when all these systems are running smoothly. There's been big disruptions of them, such as the earthquake and tsunami in Japan, and the 9/11 attack on the United States when nothing flew. And we have to be prepared. There's also been labor strikes. I remember many years ago, we couldn't get enough machine screws, nuts and bolts, lock washers, things like that, because they were stuck in containers on ships due to a strike strikes at one or more ports. So my philosophy has always been to keep enough inventory at the front end. And you can always argue about what enough is. And I don't think any of us were expecting to see something like a 1.5 year disruption in supply. However, we have invested heavily. To answer your questions directly, Dave, all the money that we have spent on inventory. And so, hey, you know what? We can make anything our customers need in just a few days. We got all the recipes and everybody's ready to go to make in a day what we need in a day. But you can't do that if you don't have all the ingredients on the shelf in your pantry. So that's really important. Contrast that, say, with Ford Motor Company and other automotive manufacturers who have acres of cars sitting, waiting for electronics to be put in them because their suppliers don't have the parts. And I believe that they've discovered that they're probably running too lean on the front end.
Well, I think the saying is you can't sell out of an empty cart.
Can't sell out of an empty wagon. That's right.
I think, empty wagon, that's the quote. One of the strategies that you really employed ever since I've been here for the 27 years that I have worked at SEL is the idea of vertical integration. And I think maybe some supply chain experts think maybe that's not the best way to run a business. What are your thoughts on vertical integration, and what have you done to address vertical integration?
Well, vertical integration is just the opposite of when in doubt, shop it out. That Jack Welch of General Electric fame, for example, believed in outsourcing to find suppliers who would do things at the lowest possible price. And I get that. I get the economic part of it. But on the other part of it, there's so much to learn when you make things yourselves. Dave, you'll remember back many years ago, we had plastic, we designed plastic parts for our products. And we really didn't understand plastics until we started shooting our own plastic parts. And, you know, we'd go through these studies with spreadsheets and everything to see if it made business sense. And there was too many assumptions that you had to make, and people would pad the assumptions and everything to be conservative to make sure. And of course, the answer comes back, no, don't do it. However, And I put my foot down and said, no, we are. Let's just go get injection molding equipment and start doing this. And we're going to learn so much, and we'll be better customers of our suppliers. And we'll also be able to start doing some of this ourselves. And boy, did that ever come to be true. Now our designers are inherently familiar with the capability of our machinery and the associated processes. And we're able to do things right here that we were never able to do before. And we're able to do things with our plastic suppliers external that we could never have done before. So I'm all in favor of it. And our biggest vertical integration activity today is a 180,000 square foot manufacturing facility going up in Moscow, Idaho. And we'll be making the green circuit boards that our engineers design those. It's a critical component, and our engineers design it. The artwork goes out to a board house, and they etch the artwork into the copper laminate and so forth. Comes back here, and we put the parts on them, put them into the instruments, and ship them to the customers. So we're going to be able to build those green circuit boards in the Moscow plant. And what's been happening over the years is the domestic supply of circuit boards has been going down. Most of that industry has gone offshore. And we don't want to be sending our artwork offshore. That's our intellectual property. And now we can contain that here. And who knows, maybe one of these days we'll even be using this new root of ours that we're growing to be making circuit boards for others. And I know for both you and me, this is a dream come true.
We're both electronic engineers at heart, so.
And to be able to design a circuit, have a specialist lay it out and be able to send it to the board fab and have the board come back the next day. It's a dream come true.
Yeah, it's when we talk about manufacturing matters, the idea of vertical integration is just, it's just simply amazing. As I pointed out, you really understand the technology, your ability to turn things faster for your customers is greatly increased, and you really understand the quality. It's a win for everybody.
And we can take assumptions off the table. Well, we always assumed that we had to do this, but by working so closely with the processes, well, it gives a lot of opportunity for creativity. Another thing about our plant that I'm proud of is our guys have figured out how to do this in a way that this circuit board plant will be the greenest circuit board plant on this planet. And it will use 50 gallons of processed water a day to cover evaporation only. Not one drop of waste goes down a drain anywhere. In fact, the people working in a plant will use a lot more water every day than these evaporative losses.
So you can be a manufacturer and be green at the same time.
Yeah, you know, the beautiful thing is that when you consider the environment, and it's a human nature to want to take care of the planet. And we're so lucky where we live and work and raise our families here in Eastern Washington and the Idaho Panhandle, that this is part of who we are, to protect this environment. And it just fits hand in hand with economic and political freedom to do so. After all, waste by definition is something you don't want to produce. So why produce it? Look for a way not to do it. Henry Ford was really good at that. He didn't let anything go to waste. He invented Fordite, which is a cast resin sort of thing that he'd make out of the wood chips left over from the wood frames of his earliest cars.
Let's move on to another, well, I think challenge or maybe even a threat to manufacturing and businesses across the US, and that's inflation. Turn on the news these days, the talk is certainly about inflation, sometimes even about hyperinflation. And you've been really talking to us internally here at SEL since, well, for quite a while, but in particular, starting in January, looking at the economic future of our country. We share with us some of your thoughts on inflation, what's causing it, and what we all might be able to do to help stem inflation.
Well, we all know that inflation is here. We see it in the price of groceries, gasoline, everything. We hate increasing our prices. You know, here we try to keep our prices down because that's driving our value up. And when we want to pay people more money, when our suppliers are expecting more supplies, at some point, there's enough pressure where we have to sit down with our customers and kind of explain the big picture of what's going on here. Let's face it, that in the forces of inflation do not come from employment or supply or manufacturing. The forces of inflation are entirely a monetary phenomenon. Again, referring to Milton Friedman, he explains and teaches that inflation is everywhere and always a monetary phenomenon. And who controls the supply of money? It's a combination of the Federal Reserve and the Treasury. So he goes on to teach that if the supply of money is increasing too fast, say, compared to the true, real growth of a country or the world economy, then that's inflationary. It's cheapening the value of every dollar. I mean, if you double the supply of money, suddenly every dollar would only be worth 50 cents as prices adjusted to fill that back up. So inflation is everywhere and entirely a monetary phenomenon, meaning we, the people, have to look to the people that we elect and send to service in Washington, D.C. to get them to stop printing money. Our U.S. representative, Kathy McMorris Rogers, wrote a darn good op-ed piece published in the Spokesman Review Sunday talking about inflation. And we have to do it. It's tough medicine to take for a while. And then what will happen, we'll get well. And meanwhile, we have this other problem that the dollar today will be worth 93 cents or 94 cents a year from now, and then 88 cents a year after that. And in order to do that, we have to be paying people more. We'll be paying our suppliers more. And you know what? Used to be, when I was a kid, people would say, you're sound as a dollar. And I'm going to go get my physical next month. And if at the end of it, Dr. Simpson says, Ed, you're sound as a dollar, I ain't going to buy any green bananas.
It is 97% of what he was, or
yeah, I don't know.
He's partial in. Inflation, we all need to be worried about that, right? It's a tax on the poor, it's a tax on your savings, and it's certainly a huge looming challenge for businesses.
You know, you look at a person living on a fixed income who has to pay nearly $1 for more per gallon of gas, or the prices at the grocery store that are going so fast. And the fixed income may be from your savings, it may be from Social Security or other sources that frankly, even with cost of living increases, these fixed income sort of sources of money don't keep up with inflation. It really hurts. Energy prices, heating homes is whether it's propane or natural gas or electricity, pretty much in that order. I think we'll see price increases.
Moving back to Washington State, in recent years, Washington State legislature has approved changes which make it more difficult to do business in Washington State. I can think you mentioned the Long-Term Health Care Act. We often joke, I don't think you could potato stamp a building we build today 2 years from now because of various regulations. What would you say to a business looking to establish operations in Washington? And how can we as border counties better compete?
For our state to compete better, again, we have to think about the people that we are sending to Olympia and to ensure that these are folks who understand economic and political freedom, who understand the spirit of free enterprise. What an important role the chambers of commerce play in teaching and sharing this and helping us. The right people run for office who get this. Washington State is in many dimensions losing its competitiveness. And fortunately, we have choices. Our new factory is going up in Moscow, Idaho. There is no wall between Washington and Idaho. And guess what? There is no wall on the border between Illinois and Indiana either, that people can move and do move businesses and locate where things are more economically and politically acceptable.
I'm going to hit on one last topic before we open it up for question and answer. Certainly if we're walking down Pullman or even up in Spokane, just about anywhere in the US, you'll see help wanted signs out in the front of stores. Certainly if you go to our website, we probably have 200 positions open right now looking for folks to help us either manufacture our products or design and invent our products. Immigration is for whatever reasons, a big challenge for our well, certainly our companies, but our country as a whole. No one will disagree that immigration is a problem, or at least I can't think anybody that would. Ed, what are your thoughts on immigration and really how do we go about solving it?
Well, let's think about where immigration comes from. The whole idea of immigration is related to borders, that relates to the sovereignty of nations. So here's two countries, say the United States and Canada, or United States and Mexico. And these two nations have their own sets of rules and cultures and so forth that puts them in charge of figuring out how to interface at that political border, which is a man-made line drawn on a map. So how that actually functions then is a more or less legitimate function of government. And you know, when you see these help wanted signs in every other business, I'll bet the ones that don't have a sign are looking for people too. And at the same time, you see something like 12,000 or 15,000 Haitians living under a bridge. And people wanting to come here, you just see that here's a supply and demand situation that something really, really positive could happen for our country and for the lives of so many people by solving this. And of course, there's legitimate reasons to have immigration policies, such as to keep bad people out, and to stop the spread of communicable diseases, to mention a couple. And once, however, immigration is used as a tool of sophists, I got a problem with it. So go ahead, Dave.
Well, I was just going to mention, certainly on a personal SEL note, we showed the video at the beginning of the program, the 21 relay. Fast forward now 40 years, Ed and a handful of team members got together and came up with a relay that is an order of magnitude faster than the present protection. This protecting of now power system has gone from, say, 20 milliseconds to a handful of milliseconds. It likes to point out it's going from a car to a jet. It's an amazing feat of engineering and technology that is now being broadly used all around the world.
It's exciting.
It really is exciting. The asterisk I should put to it, I should really call it the international relay, because if I'm not mistaken, Ed, you were the only US born, English is your first language, key team member for that project.
That's right. Let's see, the key engineers on that, sounds like the start of a bad joke, you know. There's myself from the United States, an engineer from Mexico, South Africa, Poland, Croatia, India. Isn't that fun? And Dave was teasing me earlier then hey, that thing would have worked a lot better if we had included people from 2 or 3 more countries. And there's something to that.
I think there is. It's and we are challenged, right, with the lottery system for H-1Bs. This is
what a dumb idea a lottery is. That's the only thing we can figure, the only tool that we can figure out to manage immigration is a lottery. I don't know what you all think about gambling. I don't think much of it. But gambling with people's lives like that is horrific.
Yeah, and I think you're right. Having a sound immigration policy, right, where, as you pointed out, we can certainly provide a little bit of protection to ourselves. But I just think about the huge loss we have. We'll never be able to measure what we weren't able to do because we didn't have the talented people that wanted to come to the U.S. and help us create new technologies. It's simply amazing. Any other thoughts on that?
Yeah, I guess it's time to wrap up. So I'm going to read, one of my favorite landmarks in the United States is the Statue of Liberty. Of course, it was a gift from France to the United States to represent the, and be a landmark about freedom. And on the base of that, there's a poem by Emma Lazarus entitled The New Colossus. And I think this really speaks to the heart of what we, the people, expect when it comes to immigration. Not like the brazen giant of Greek fame, with conquering limbs astride from land to land. Here at our sea-washed sunset gates shall stand a mighty woman with a torch, whose flame is imprisoning night lightning, and her name, Mother of Exiles. From her beacon hand glows worldwide welcome. Her mild eyes command the air-bridged harbor that twin cities frame. Keep, ancient lands, your storied pomp, cries she, with silent lips. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses, yearning to be free. The wretched refuse of your teeming shore, send these, the homeless, tempest tossed to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door. That's what the United States of America is about. That's what life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness look like. And that's what manufacturing, that's why manufacturing matters, is it helps this dream come true for all of us.
Thanks, Ed.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Dr. Schweitzer and Mr. Whitehead, for this conversation. I know we have questions lining up here, and so again, I'll remind the audience with us to go ahead and utilize the Q&A function in your Zoom toolbar to enter those. We also have the ability to upvote questions should we get a bunch flowing in there. So we're going to turn it over to questions. I'll start with the first one from the audience here. Kelly Fukai asked, with the tight labor market and competition for talented people, can you talk about how SEL has been successful in attracting people to manufacturing careers?
Work is interesting and it's vital. We get to move energy at the speed of light. Nobody else gets to do that except folks in the electric power industry and our utilities and other suppliers. This is what we're all about, moving energy at the speed of light. So it's really, really a constructive, rewarding thing to be doing. And SEL is 100% employee owned. Folks who make their careers here with SEL, well, it's a difference between renting your job and owning a job. So between the ownership in the work and the vital mission that we're performing, it's super interesting work on top of it all, whether you're designing hardware, writing software, or selling things. Think about how cool it is to be a salesperson and get to go out and sell something that's 10 times faster than anybody else's equipment on the planet. We have a lot of fun. We work hard. The business is serious. We've got great values. And these are things that when we do hire people, we ask them, why did you want to come to work at SEL? And almost always one of the first or second top answer is because of the values of the company.
Okay, thank you. Let's see, looks like, there we go. We had a pause in the video. So next question. You talked a little bit about the supply chain and US manufacturing in general. Can you go back and kind of reiterate your thoughts on how we as a US supply chain can insulate ourselves a little better into the future to avoid the challenges we're seeing on things like the semiconductor shortages and as that then attributes into further problems?
We do need to make things closer to home and work with people who are doing it. And some of the supply chains are just so brittle. When we see semiconductors that are etched onto wafers here in the United States, and then it goes to another country where they're sliced and diced, and somewhere else where they're packaged and tested, and finally back to the United States. These things, you know, have more stamps in their passports than somebody working for Michelin running around the world evaluating hotels and restaurants. So that doesn't make any sense in the first place. So doing these things closer to home is of tremendous advantage to us. We have a group that we established, supplier development, and that's their objective, is to bring critical components closer to home. And this is something that we can all be part of. I was in a discussion with the president of one of the country's best universities not too long ago. He and I had a dinner, and he asked me, he said, "What do you think that semiconductor manufacturing is of strategic importance to the United States?" I said, "Yes, it is. And so is the production of food, production of aluminum, production of energy, production of pharmaceuticals, production of virtually everything that we use is of strategic importance."
Next question is related specifically to SEL. How many locations does SEL have, and what's your criteria for selecting manufacturing locations?
You want to do it, or should I?
Well, we can talk. We have about. Are we talking just manufacturing facilities in the U.S. or offices, engineering offices? And
let's go corporate wide. I think that probably embodies the spirit better of it.
Probably have about 50, 60 offices within the US, and then about another 50 or 60 offices around the rest of the world. We have we have a electronics manufacturing facility in Pullman, Washington, about 250,000 square feet. Down in Lewiston, Idaho, we have about another 250,000 square feet of manufacturing. We have a panel and assembly enclosure place up here in Pullman, in West Lafayette, Indiana, and Charlotte, North Carolina. We have a large panel assembly place down in SLP, Mexico, that really serves the Mexican market. It does some exporting into the US also, if they're very, very large orders. I think that's about.
So, one of the questions we get about our San Luis Potosi, Mexico operation is why? And the answer is, hey, that we needed to be closer to our customers there. That's what our customers wanted. They wanted us to be doing that for them right there. And we've done a similar thing here around the United States to be closer. And thanks to NAFTA and its successor agreement, it's pretty convenient to do business between the United States and Mexico. We do enjoy a lot of economic and political freedom between our nations.
And then the second part of that question is, what goes into your criteria for when you're looking to select a site?
Some of the things that I'm most concerned about today is working with states and communities that, just like you with your chamber, believe in economic and political freedom, where we are welcome and where the atmosphere is welcoming. That what we're not looking for is handouts. That I don't know how many letters over the years I've thrown in a wastebasket from this or that or the other state that say move to state XYZ because, and if you do, we'll give you all this money and training and stuff like that. Tear them up and throw them away. We want to go somewhere where they don't play favorites, because why should we go set up something in the state and get a great big handout like that and have people who are living in the state having to pay for it? That's not fair. When we built the plant over, I'm kind of animated about it.
You always get animated about this topic.
We're building the plant over in Moscow, Idaho. And there was some opportunities for, some kind of economic zone or some hokey pokey sophistry, going back to use the word Adam Smith used. And said, no, we don't want to do something like that. And instead, we want to make sure that the taxes we pay in Moscow, Idaho, go to all of Moscow, Idaho, and not just some subset of that community. That we're looking for economic and political freedom. That's what we're looking for.
As an economic development agency, I would say we don't have the large incentive pools in the Spokane region. So maybe that's why we landed SCL right there. Looking at the Northwest and the inland Northwest, obviously you have a large base of operations here. What do you see as our competitive advantage for attracting additional manufacturing in the future here?
I think there's a good quality of life. When you're speaking of, say, Eastern Washington, Northern Idaho, it's a wonderful area to live. That I mentioned earlier, the pristine environment and people who appreciate that. The relatively low costs of energy due to the tremendous hydroelectric resources we have, although those are the costs of energy are rising as sophistry has affected the electric power industry more than I'd like it to. And
great school systems.
Yeah, good schools.
From high schools to trade schools to universities.
Yep. And guys, you look right around here from, Spokane, Coeur d'Alene, Pullman, Moscow, Clarkston, Lewiston, all these communities have the whole range of educational opportunities. And we are in competition with the rest of the country and the rest of the world. That in these very regards that seem to stand out for us, that the world is competitive. And somebody once had a little sign on her desk here that said, competition, at first it makes you sick, then it makes you better. And we do compete to serve. And our state of Washington has to realize that it has to stay competitive. And handouts and special interests are no ways to get better. Those are just ways to make it worse. If the state gets too complicated with all of its rules and regulations, pretty soon it's saying, never mind, Dave, come on and locate here in our state. Well, you don't have to obey by that one.
How fair is that?
How fair is that to the barber or the grocer or a small businessman or woman?
It's not.
So we have to fight for fair, free, flat, open.
I think that segues nicely into Nick Wilkes asked the question, what's the one thing manufacturers can do to set them ahead of their competitors when recruiting talent?
When recruiting talent, you said?
Talent, yeah, correct.
The one thing? I don't know. I can't think of one thing.
I don't know if it's one thing. The thing I would probably start with from our educational system is give kids a fundamental understanding of science or math. We're just talking about manufacturing. When it comes to a particular process or a particular machine or whatever it is, all of that stuff is going to be changing year over year. That's really our business, how we set up our manufacturing lines to do it a particular way. So if we can ask our schools or what have you, is let's get back to reading, writing, and arithmetic, right? And the rest of the stuff when it comes to some competitive advantage at a manufacturing facility like ours or somebody else's, that's our business to make sure that we're innovating and creating these new technologies.
You know what, Dave? I'm thinking about when you first came to SEL with
27 years ago.
27 years ago, that what piqued Dave's interest was he got curious. He was interested in what we do. So maybe that's the thing as manufacturers, when we ask somebody, hey, here's what we do, would you like to work with us, is pique his or her interest in what you're doing. And different things, it's a good thing. The good Lord made us all different. He did it for a reason. And somebody will walk into a bakery and get interested in the processes of baking bread. And somebody else will walk into a aluminum manufacturer and where they're, see a pot line in operation. And I mean, I hate to use the word pot anymore, my God, but the electrolytic process for making aluminum, and think, wow, that's interesting. Or somebody will come here and say, really, electricity does move at the speed of light. How does all this work? And once somebody, just anything that piques your interest, and pretty soon you get involved in it. And because of the innate curiosity that we're all born with, is we get curious about the things around us, and in as much as we can foster that in creative ways, that becomes very, very, very attractive to people, I think.
Yeah, it could be a byproduct of modern convenience has meant that it's just magically there for you, and we've lost that curiosity that was there within the Industrial Revolution of seeing how things are actually made. I'm going to do two final quick rapid fire questions, one from Omar here. A large part of outsourcing that had occurred over the last few decades has been to reduce costs. Do you think that anything should have been done previously to limit that outsourcing? And if so, what would you or did you recommend?
I think when the question is stated, anything that should have been done, because that's in the passive voice, it sort of begs the question of by whom. And I do believe that businessmen and women, you and me, our peers, have a responsibility to ourselves, our customers, and our nation to make things close and closer to home. And that's a responsibility on us that I believe maybe was sort of people were distracted from by some kind of sort of bad thinking. Now, turn the other way, what should the government's role be in it? Is the government's role needs to go back to this fundamental thing that we're talking about today, which is defending our economic and political freedom. You know what? Because we can make things in other countries. It's cheaper to sew a pair of jeans in the Dominican Republic maybe than it is in New York City. So somebody will make a decision that that's what they're going to do. And wouldn't it be better then to foster our own economic and political freedom to make it attractive, so that reducing the overhead of government, reducing this and getting it back to its essentials of providing for the common defense and a sound currency and a legal system that we can all trust. Getting back to those first principles is the government's role, and our individual's role is to love our country and work to help one another by succeeding ourselves.
Okay, and last question. A common thread we hear a lot about in today's news media and our conversations with business owners is just the general polarization of today's political climate, and we increasingly see this even into our local communities. What strategies, as somebody who's worked around the world and brought people together to create solutions, what strategies do you think we need to focus on to get back to having better general civil discourse?
Well, civil discourse is respect. And we're not going to agree on everything. You know, SEL, what are we, 5,300 people together around the world? You could take, in this room right now, there's about 9 of us, I think. And there is a one thing that all 9 of us are, there's, you know, I could talk to Dave for 10 minutes and we'll find 4 things we don't agree on. And you know what, but we have to respect each other for our differences of opinions and to embrace the differences. I mentioned earlier that this beautiful thing about the human spirit, you know, that God created every one of us different for some reason. And I like to joke, I'm still trying to figure out why he made Dave so different, but you know, every one of us is different. And this is something that we can embrace and appreciate. And we need to slow it down, to respect, to think using our frontal cortex more than we use our amygdalas when we respond to things. And we need to start rejecting a lot of the communication processes that foment discord in our society and turn to one another with respect. And, you know, when we do that in a personal way where Dave knows it's Ed talking to him and Ed knows it's Dave, when we know each other well, that respect, it turns out to be a pretty natural thing, thank goodness.
Okay, thank you both. Thank you, Dr. Schweitzer. Thank you, Dave, for the time today, for the thoughtful conversation today. We truly are grateful for you spending the morning with us and speaking to our members here at the Greater Spokane Valley Chamber of Commerce. With that, we are going to wrap up today. And so again, thank you to our Greater Good sponsor, Impact Washington, our underwriting sponsor for the event today, Wagstaff, and our speaker sponsor, Bank of America. If you have additional questions for our presenters, please do reach out to us. Our email address is very simple. It's info@SpokaneValleyChamber.org. And last but not least, we are excited to announce our annual meeting date is November 18th. That's Thursday. And our nonprofit showcase will be Friday, December 10th. Both of these events will be back in person. We're excited to see you, the membership, out at these events. So please do look at SpokaneValleyChamber.org to go ahead and register. We will have limited space at both, so please register early if you'd like to attend. And with that, we will call the meeting to adjournment today. Thank you again for joining us.